it is our fate to be here. It is our destiny. I believe this night holds for each and every one of us the very meaning of our lives.
The town just did everything how they wanted to do, and that's where they were making their money.
And nobody challenged them.
And nobody challenged them until little old me come along. Let's see, 76. I was 20 years old.
Well, I mean, now we look at what you've done for the last 40 years or so, or 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been all about municipal laws. But
No.
but something obviously got a burr under your saddle, so that you would start to look deeper and deeper, because not only myself, but those who are in this conference and others who may hear this also know something's not really right. And so we're wondering, I would say, collectively, as to when you finally said, what's going on the other side of the curtain? Are we necessarily being, one, lied to, and two, in the matrix of somebody else's creation?
Yeah, that was in 1982, because that's when I got involved with the IRS. And one thing led to another, and then the way the government was, and Schiff was going along, and I was like him. I was filing everybody, and I kept losing. This particular time I was in the court, and the appeals court, and it seemed to be going along okay until the DOJ from the state walked in and gave it to the judge, and the judge asked me, did I have any comment? I says, I just got it right now. The minute you got it is when I got it, so how can I make a comment? I got to read through 40 pages? Because that's when they hand me a brief. Schiff had just lost the case in Connecticut.
Is this the Schiff that goes around protesting the IRS?
Right.
Okay.
And see, he lived in Connecticut at the time.
Also, if you can, is there any way you can boost your volume a little bit? We're hearing that you're a little bit low.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay, well then put the phone in your mouth.
Okay.
All right, no problem. Go ahead. Go on with the story about what happened after Schiff.
So Schiff had lost, and the state came in and said that, my argument was the same as Schiff. And I called Schiff, and I said, hey, what happened? And I says, what you're doing, everything that you're doing and everybody else is doing is totally wrong. So I'm going to stop following what you and everybody else is saying and go do my own research. And that was in 82.
All right, and that led you down the IRS situation, right?
And one thing snowballed into more, because the more you got involved with it, the more you find out that, and this is real library work. This is not internet work.
I know, yep.
And you go into the library and you pull a book out looking for something, and it catches your eye, and you say, okay, I'm going to look at this later. Of course, you forget about it. And you go back to find what you was trying to think about, and you can't find it. So I got in the habit of sticking the library books with little stick'ems.
Right. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah. And so then, one thing leads to another, and by just stumbling across this stuff, you start to get a picture of what you're looking for. So then the next time you go back in, you know what you're going to look for, but you don't exactly know where they have it in what book.
I'll just say this, and again, we'll cut a little quicker to the premise of this whole show. But I would say this: there was a time when I sat back before I even knew about you, and I kept pursuing what I felt was the path to find out. Okay, look, I don't care where this leads. Just let me know what's going on. I'm all right with it. Whatever it is, it is.
Right.
And then the last thing beyond all this, I said, oh my goodness. Probably in a little bit more expletive terms.
Right.
And I said, could this whole deal about the U.S. and our founding fathers and all this stuff be a crock? And then I don't know what happened after that, but I started looking for you. You never sought me out. I mean, you're a private person and would like to be that way.
Right.
But I importuned you, and I said, listen, can you help me? And my instinct's right about this, and can you point me? And you did.
Uh-huh.
And the point of the matter is, we are in a fairyland.
Oh, yeah. That is what I guess me and Montgomery had found this out, like, I found about 1990, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and I was believing the Constitution was going to save everybody, and you could do this and that, and they got to listen to you, and the courts have to, the law is the law, and what it is, and that's passé now. I mean, I was just as ignorant as everybody else when it comes to that, and that's what led me into believing, after reading case upon case. And you always go to the end of the case. You read the decision of the case. Now you go back to the very beginning and you start going down through the case to get to the end where you know where the outcome is going to be, and it takes on a whole new light as to what they're doing
to get there.
Instead of down and you're saying, hey, the guy can win, well, I don't know, maybe, and you get down to the end and the guy lost.
All right.
And backwards, and doing the case backwards, you get a better perspective of how they are thinking.
Okay, and again, if you're in proximity to the computer, just be aware of that.
Right.
Okay.
I'm quite a ways away from it.
Okay. No, only because we had some breakup. All right, be that as it may, and somebody asked just how I found you, but as I just stated, I just sat here and saying, okay, how deep does this run? And I don't know, how I did it, but I came to you. I probably went to ATG Press, and I'll tell folks right now, if you want to find the writings of the Informer and James Montgomery, you can do that by going to ATG, that stands for Against the Grain, Adam Thomas Grass, atgpress.com, and you'll see it's all there. That'll help you to a great deal. The I-Man has books. They're available. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's get into the nitty-gritty, because the vision I had, and that which I shared also with I-Man, he seemed to be okay with it, and that was to try to do something that was encapsulated. We've done a lot of shows. We'll repeat some stuff, but this would at least be concentrated into a 2-hour block where people could sit there and listen to it and say, okay, now I got it, and don't have to go through hours and hours where we go on other digressions. And this one is going to be the nitty-gritty. And so let's get to the very beginning of the beginning. First of all, as you stated time and time again, it's all about semantics. It's all about terms and terminology. But as it pertains to this nation, we think of it as the United States. We think of it as the United States of America. We think about it as America. Could you just break down what those three mean? And is it important not to mix up what's the United States, what's the United States of America, and what's America?
Okay, the United States is a place, a thing. It's a noun. And it's capital United States of the wall of unanimous declaration as a declaration by the representatives of the United States of America, all capital letters, in General Congress assembled. Well, the United States is actually Congress assembled. That's it. Wherever Congress assembled, that's the United States.
All right. The United States equals Congress assembled.
Right.
Okay.
Now, for the term United States of America, a lot of times you look at that, and in cases it'll say United States, and then when it gets into the real nitty-gritty of the case, right underneath in the beginning, it says United States of America. There is no difference. What it is if you take that and you say United States, you know that that's Congress assembled of. That means it belongs to. The next word in the sentence, America. America is a country. The United States is not a country. The United States is actually Congress assembled, and it represents, the United States actually represents a subdivision of the Crown.
All right, now,
but the word America,
okay.
It doesn't matter whether you use United States or United States of America, it's the same thing. It is like the shoe and the box. Okay? The shoe of the box. Well, the shoe is in the box, isn't it? Well, it came out of the box. It belongs into the box. Therefore, you can say the shoe or the shoe of the box.
All right, let me try to get this straight. What you're talking about is the Congress assembled is the United States, and it happens to be the shoe that's inside the box called America.
Right. and the box is America.
All right. Now, you made a point, and I think we ought to bring this out here because we're not being nitpicking, and that is America is what everybody in the old world referred to this continent as, or at least this.
Yes, if you go out and you can look at the old maps, you will see it says America. And in some of the material that I caught on there, on what I've been just researching about the crown and everything like that, it says on the net, you can go in and you can pull it, anybody can pull it up, type in the history of the American presidents. It doesn't say United States presidents, it says American presidents, meaning that the presidents of what's in America is the presidents of the United States. Now, when you actually get in and you listen to the introduction of the president in any congressional hearings or any speeches that he gives, it says, I now introduce the president of the United States. They do not put of America. Because that's a separate entity in and of himself, because he's not the president of all the states. Well, he is now because of their all territories. But originally it was the states were independent and the president was only the president of the United States, because if every governor signed a law and he would have to present it to the president of the United States of America, they wouldn't get anything done. In other words, he can't be the president of all 50 states. He's only the president of the United States. And in the John Barron case, they actually come out and the Supreme Court gave that dictation and explained why John Barron couldn't use the Fifth Amendment, because he wasn't a party actually to be able to invoke the Fifth Amendment, because it only applied to those people in the United States, and the states were ignored by the first Bill of Rights, which actually carries its own preamble. Okay, now I'll stop you there because people are going to get a little bit entwined, and I'm just trying to straighten this thing out because we're going to revisit or revisit some of these sectors. So here's an interesting point, and that is the president is always introduced, as we see every time he walks in for a State of the Union address, as the president of the United States. Yeah, that's because he's the head, he's the poobah for the District of Columbia. Right. All right. Now, United States of America, he can't speak for the 50 states. No. Or the 50 states. That's all that means. Yeah, but in a court case, when they say United States of America versus John Doe, well, you can delete America, the word of America, and just put United States. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. It's just that the United States is in a country called America, like the shoe is in the box called the shoe box. All right, now we have this thing called the United States. And are you saying then that this is something ephemeral? It is a concoction, if you will, a construct that is not really geographical, but is laid over a geographical nation, which is the United States. Right. Hooven and Allison versus Evat in 1925 gave the distinction of three definitions that you could use for the term United States. And it only meant what Hooven and Allison versus Evat said, that it can be a distinct thing in the District of Columbia. It can be the country as a whole referred to as the United States. And the last one I can't remember, but it was immaterial. But yeah, if you look at the United States and the United States of America, they're one and the same. It doesn't matter. You can use them interchangeably. Okay. All right. In fact, I had asked somebody who had risen a question in the chat room about this, but, it may not be a bad time. A claim of right has asked, and I don't think, if we go a little further, I'll just ask you to, hang in there, because, for the most part, you've got all the information. I can sit here and I'm going to basically play the part of somebody who's never heard this before. And, of course, I'm kind of dense, so in a way, it's kind of the same. But and I'll bring you back. And I know you're okay with that. You and I have done enough stuff. We're all right. All right, but Claim of Right has asked something. He said, looking at that whole construct with the definitions of United States and the United States of America, Claim of Right is asking, is there an equivalent for England? Is the UK analogous to
the United States, which he wrote in caps. I don't know if you know what he was doing there, but it's okay. Is there any? I mean, is the UK broken down just like we are? Because we know we're in tow to England. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the United Kingdom would mean everything that the United Kingdom owns in the world. It said the sun never set on British Empire.
Right.
So the United Kingdom is a British Empire, and it's not just England itself. It is China, parts of the Philippines, parts of the Mariana Islands, parts of South America, Canada, the United States, the West Indies, all those countries that were in the British Empire or the United Kingdom.
Okay.
That's why they called it the United Kingdom. It wasn't just plain, when you say the British Empire, you're meaning everything in the world that Great Britain owned at one time. And but if you're talking about Great Britain, now you're just talking about England itself, that island that's off the coast of Europe.
But do they experience then? I mean, and you know, there's some light bulbs over there in the UK who understand what's going on. But are they dealing with the same thing we are in a sense that? Okay,
yeah, basically, yes.
I mean, they have a parliament and they have the Queen and the King.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you would say that, then in essence, this isn't something that is necessarily just endemic to the UK or the United States.
No.
This is something that's a governmental thing, of course, that's very, if you will, and I mean this word in every term possible, in every meaning possible, it is diabolical.
Yes. Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Like the Roman Empire. I mean, look how much they owned. It wasn't just Italy. It was spread all over.
Well, ironic, and again, this is like another whole 5 hours. We can't go there. But the thing is, you raise a good point. And are we not looking at the second coming of the Holy Roman Empire?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, that's all right. You sound a little contentious there.
Well, from what I just found.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Pope did own Great Britain back in 1215, and he owned all the subjects and all the land that Britain owned, and that's why he claims to be the owner of all the property in the world, because that is one of the tenets of the Catholic Church, that no private man can ever own property. The Vicar of Christ has to own the property first. All
right, we got two things going on here, and let me try to balance this. To be very clear about what's going on here, when we talk about the crown, that we can also talk about, like, Washington. I mean, it's a very all-encompassing term, but when we look at the crown, are we talking about the City of London? Are we talking about what now is the power base, and that is the Rothschilds, who have ensconced themselves in the City of London? Would that be fair? That may not be the way, obviously, before they gained power in the days of the American Revolution. How does that work out?
Well, the crown itself could be used to be the kings and the queen. That was the crown of England, okay, of the British Empire. Not the British Empire, but Great Britain. But now you also had the crown, which is the exchequer of the king in the City of London, a totally separate entity from the crown, meaning the king. So this is where a lot of people get confused if they don't know exactly what crown they're talking about. But the crown, yes, the crown actually owns and operates the world and has put us in this mess that we're in today in America.
All right, so when we talk about the crown right now,
right,
what is that referring to?
The Bank of England.
And that is run by the?
That is run by the international bankers that, if you look at the Federal Reserve, they are the same people that own the Bank of England.
All right, are we looking at the Rothschilds?
Well, it wasn't the Rothschilds before, but it was when they came in to be the first bank in the United States. See, the first bank of the United States, it didn't say the first bank of the United States of America, did it? It says the first bank of the United States. Well,
National Bank, yeah.
Yeah, and so when Washington created the War Powers Act in 1792 to obfuscate the directives from the Crown in writing the Constitution, he, in 1792, decided that he was going to bring in the first bank because, you see, the Crown wrote the law that this country could not operate with paper money. It had to be gold and silver. It wasn't the Founding Fathers that set this up. It wasn't Congress. It was the British Crown because it was better to control the subdivision that they just formed called the United States.
Right.
And they couldn't, and they would not allow them to use, and this goes back to 1751, when the British Board of Trade wrote the first act to stymie this country, because this country could not get enough gold, and therefore they had to issue the Massachusetts Bay Note, and this is how they prospered from 1751 all the way up until when the Revolutionary War took place.
All right, so we can say that the Massachusetts Bay Note was backed by real reserves and work.
It was backed by wool, corn,
right, and commodities.
Bushel, all the commodities, and it was non-inflatable. The only currency in this entire world that has never been inflatable, because if you took this note and you went in and say you sold something and you got this note and it said you get so much in sheep's wool, corn, leather, and whatnot, you could go back 20 years from then in the future, present the note, and get the same amount, no matter what the price is, you got the same amount of wool, corn, leather, and the other commodity that was there.
But there was something real that stood for something that was a substitute.
Everybody used that. It's not like today, because everybody generally was a farmer and worked with their hands. There was no Wall Street then. There was no businesses like there were small businesses, but nothing big like there is today.
Right.
No GM, no IBM, no Exxon Oil Company or anything like that.
All right. Well, I want to ask you, a claimant right asked in the chat room, is there a company name for England? I mean, we know we have a corporation here. Is there a corporation there as well?
Well, it's not a corporation like, well, it is. It's a divine right of kings. They had their own corporation, if you wanted to call it a corporation.
Okay.
But over here, you can go on to Manta or Dun & Bradstreet, and you can type in the United States and find out that it is a corporation.
That is true, and folks, you can do that. And again, as Iman said, go to Manta, that's MANTA.com. I would also say Veromi.net, and you can type in, well, what did you type in to find out that Manta came up?
When you go to Manta, up in the upper left-hand corner, it says type in the name of your corporation. Well, you can type in the United States, the IRS, the judiciary of the United States, the judiciary of any state, you can even type in the Congress or the Senate of the United States, and you will find out that they are a private corporation. It will tell you when it was created, how many people there are, who is the head CEO, and the whole 9 yards.
Well, the rich part of that is because then they are not under any kind of control by we, the plebiscite.
That's right, because we never created the Constitution. It was created by the British Crown dictating to the Founding Fathers that this is what they were to write in the Constitution. Now, if this is a feigned war that they had, the Revolutionary War, we never won it, by the way. And that can be proven. Montgomery has proven it, and I've proven it on ATG Press. And the good thing that a lot of people can do is go to the ATG Press and go to Knowledge and Freedom and scroll down till you get to 25 answers to the 25 questions presented to James Montgomery. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to go read the rest of they're pretty long articles. And they're actually the real documents from the king, from the Pope, and from any dignitary and any government. And he actually put the exact readings into the Pope, into the document that he was doing, the article, And it's like you're back in those days reading exactly what they said, because he put it word for word, the direct quotes right out of it, instead of putting it in like his words, okay, because he didn't want to miss anything. And that's how he put it in there. So everything you read is actual documents from President, Washington and everything, and so on and so forth.
All right. So in response to the individual claimant of right who asked about, is there a corporate name or company name equivalent to England?
Well, none for England, no.
No, but we still deal with.
Oh, well, yeah. If you want to, in the law of nations, say you want to say it's the United Kingdom, well, that's a corporation of the king. That's plain and simple. It's no longer a corporation belonging to the king because it belongs to the Pope. But it actually, in retrospect, it belongs to the crown, because the king and the Pope, when they were fighting, and then the Crusades went on, they fronted both of those parties. And they are both beholden to the crown.
All right, we'll get more involved with the Pope later on. That's for a little bit later. It won't make as much sense,
right?
Unless we go where we're going to go now. And let me go back to the outline, which is the American Revolution. I would contend that we didn't win it.
No.
Okay. And you were talking before about King George, and the thing is, and somebody also emailed me, who I believe is listening right now from the UK, stating that, isn't it interesting that King George referred to himself in the drafting of the Treaty of Paris, that he was the elector of the Holy Roman Empire and of America.
Right.
Now, the thing is, if you win a war, you draft the terms.
Yes.
If we won the revolution, why is King George laying out the yada-yada?
Yeah, because he really didn't win it. And put it this way. In 1215, when he turned everything over to the Pope, all right, he had no kingdom. He had to turn his whole kingdom and all the subjects over to the Pope.
All right, then we have to stop there because people are going to freak out when they hear this.
Yeah.
Why did he have to turn it over to the Pope?
Okay, because the Pope was excommunicated, and what he did was he was so afraid that he would lose his soul and wouldn't go to heaven that the Pope cut him a deal and said, I will recommunicate your soul so it will go to heaven, but in turn you must turn over all your subjects and all your kingdom to me.
Which king was worried that he'd go to hell? Was it George?
Yeah, King George. That was, darn it, I can't think. There was Benedict and George. And George was the one that died. I think it was Benedict that right after that took over.
Well, how far back can we go in century-wise?
1215.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah, this is 1215. And because, see, the king didn't want to have Stephen Langton, who was the Archbishop of the Church of England, totally separate from England. And he hated him and didn't want him to come in, and this is what the big fight was in 1213. And he finally had to recapitulate because that's when the Pope was fighting England, and the bank, the crown, was actually the king's exchequer, told him that, we got a fight going on between you guys, and we're fronting you the money, both of you. So that's how they do it today, and that's why he recapitulated and allowed the Archbishop Langton to come in to be the head of the Church of England. And then right after that is when he was excommunicated, his soul, and that's when the Pope read him out of scriptures what would happen to him, and the only time the Pope ever did it. And so that put the fear of God into the king, and he relented and turned all of his property and all of his subjects over. Okay, now let's move up to 1783. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what happened in 1783 is, if the Pope had turned all of his property over, how can he release his subjects over here and then let his land go when it was owned by someone else. He can't. It's in law. It's impossibility because it's international law. So what happened was when he wrote the Treaty of Peace in 1783, okay?
This is King George who wrote that.
Yeah. And,
right.
And that's why when he wrote it, he dictated all the parameters, and if you notice when you read in there, and this is what people have to understand, that it's not the words that you see as themselves being merged, but it's the terms under legal doctrination that sets the matter, and the king then took charge of everything and laid out the terms of the Treaty of Peace. It wasn't like MacArthur did in 1945 on the battleship on the deck when he had Japan's prime minister there and everybody.
In Missouri, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He dictated the terms
yeah.
and said Japan couldn't have an army, they couldn't have this, they couldn't have that, they'd have to be occupied for so many years and everything. Well, the king dictated to the people that was sent over there, Adams and Jay and all them, and instead of Adams and Jay saying, look, you took away this and this and this and this, you wouldn't let us do this, screw you, here's what we're going to do. You don't see that in the Treaty of Peace.
No.
And he then could not give up the land, so what he did is he took and said that, okay, I own all the mineral rights of gold, silver, and copper. Well, okay, if someone owns the mineral rights, they own the property because whoever rents that property, the king can come in and drill down and
do what they wish
and mine what they want out of the land, and you have no say. Even though you got a deed to the topsoil of the land, you don't have a deed to the mineral rights.
All right, so then would I be accurate in saying, as I was supposed, independent of what we've talked about,
mm-hmm.
that whenever you look at your mortgage and such,
right,
in capped letters and stuff, you're still a tenant?
Oh, yeah, because the mortgage, if you look at it, what is a mortgage when you break the word down? Mort is...
Until death.
Yeah, a mort, it's the same as mortmain. It's a dead man's hand.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was so many people in England was having and turning over their property to the church that the king had to stop it because all of his property was going to the church. You know, the Pope was slowly gaining property this way, and that's why they call it mortmain, which translates over into the United States as a mortgage. It's a dead man's hand of the land, which he can give to anybody he wants. And the king didn't like that, so he stopped the mortmain, and they could no longer do it.
All right, let me stop right there also. And Big Jim, who's producing this show, says, you mean I'm still renting?
Yeah,
you're right, Jim.
Oh, yeah, he's still renting because he's a tenant. If you look at your property deed, why do you get title insurance? Does anybody know that? Why you get title insurance?
Because if something bad happens to your house.
Well, yeah, but when you get title insurance, it goes through international law, it goes through banking, it goes through insurance, which is admiralty principles of maritime jurisdiction, and therefore the state owns that because their name is on that deed. And they are protected by title insurance. It's not that you are protected, but it is the state that is protected. And one man in North Carolina found this out, and he has been trying for I don't know how long, because when he turned it over to the attorney went right down and got title insurance on it, and he forbid them to do that, and he didn't know that this attorney did it. So he went back, and that's when he found out that the state has an interest in your title insurance because it is named as part of the insurer or a loss payee.
All right, I want to do a little business with you before you do that, but we got a last question here I want to inject into our discussion.
Uh-huh.
And a listener said, I thought Adams and Jay wrote the Treaty of 93, but that's 83 I think he's talking about, isn't it?
No, it was 1992. 1792 was the Jay Treaty.
Okay, well, good. Well, then,
they went back over into England.
Right, good point.
To straighten this out. And they couldn't really straighten it out because that's when Jay, they're all lawyers. You know, Adams and Jay and all those people that went over there, they're all lawyers.
Yeah.
They know it. They're all from the British Crown. Well, actually, they're from the Crown Temple, which was the Exchequer's legal department.
Now, let me ask you this. When they bear that title and they have that office, does that transcend national boundaries?
Yes.
So they're lawyers up beyond anything else?
Right.
Okay. All right. Please continue. Thank you.
And so when they couldn't settle it out in 1792, what happened in 1812?
We had another war with England.
Now, under international law, when you go in and read it, anybody can go and pick international law under war and treaty. Now, if you read that, you will find that any warring nations, two of them, the only way that you can prevent and end a war is by treaty. The United States, any war it has to do, and I've got the book on it, it says that in order to end any war, there must be a treaty. It can't be Congress declaring that's the end of war. It has to be by treaty.
Now, let me ask you this. The reason why it can't be by Congress is that when you deal with a treaty, you're dealing with other nations.
Yes, that's right.
It isn't endemic to a certain country. You're dealing with another one.
Right.
Therefore, this has to go outside the purview of Congress.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now, what happened was, when another nation, when either of the two nations create a war, that eliminates all treaties that proceeded right after the war, the first war.
Okay.
All right? So that meant the Treaty of 1783 is nulled. The Treaty of 1792 was nulled. And what does it revert back to? It reverts back to the Declaration of Rights of Virginia of 1603.
Okay.
And that means it puts everybody back to under British rule. It's British soil. And that's it. It's done.
Okay, so then we just got something in the chat room saying 1783 was the first one, but what you just said was that was vitiated by
the war
nothing else by 1812.
Right.
So we're all a bunch of serfs now going back to 1603.
Yeah, and that's why they had the Treaty of Verona in 1822.
Well, that's another interesting situation.
Oh, yeah. And I would say everybody should get the Treaty of Verona. And it was a secret treaty. It's no secret any longer. But I do have it in here. I don't have it at hand to read on it. But the Pope controls everything in the Treaty of Verona.
Well, that's when they turned around and said, listen, we don't like this Republican spirit of nations, and we're not going to let this go on any longer.
Right.
Now, I will say this. The Vatican did not inject itself into that treaty. However, that was obviously a conference that was held in Verona.
Well, it was because, you see, it says the Holy Roman Empire. Who was the head of the Holy Roman Empire? The Vatican.
Yeah, but it's easy to say, look, this happened in Verona, it didn't happen in Rome.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
All right, so would I say that little, what would I want to call it?
A misnomer?
No, it's a little misdirection.
Yeah, a little misdirection.
I'm looking for a more erudite word, and of course I'm not going to come up with that. But I think that was a deliberate kind of bending away, so that the focus wouldn't be on Rome. Oh, it happened in Verona.
Right.
But the Vatican was a party to it, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I don't think that you can nail them.
No, it's not specific enough.
No, but
you have to know what was going on in history at the time.
And of course, people can say, okay, look, this isn't true. Fine. But I mean, there are works like Burke McCarty, also Charles D. Wilcox, who has talked about this as well. Mm-hmm. That what was that all about? And that was like, we're not going to go through this like little inspiration to revolt against the powers that be. This is going to come to an end.
Right.
Okay. All right. Listen, we've gone so far, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to do this. So let's do this now. Again, you're listening to The Informer. We thank you all for being here. Big Jim, we thank you for producing this. And Iman, you have some books out there. What is the deal if people want to get their hands on them?
Okay, well, I figured, being the holidays and everything being like it is, that
nobody has any money.
Yeah. That I would take the Which One Are You book, the Big Lie 3 book,
okay,
and the New History of America, and I'd make the first two $45 each, and the New History of America $25. And shipping is included in that. You don't have to pay shipping.
All right.
And the new book I'm coming out with, I don't know when it will be out. I'm working on it right now. I don't know how. I'm up to 19 pages. I don't know how many more pages it will take.
You'll be all right.
I'm going to try to see if I can get an arrangement out to keep the book somewhere between $10 and $15.
Well, that's pretty fair. Okay.
And but don't hold me to that, because, like I say, I've got a lot more, and this goes into how the Crown dictated to the United States, to the framers, what to put in the Constitution, and that it was a sub-corporation of the Crown, and it goes back to the British Board of Trade that was instrumental in doing everything. And everybody says, well, what's the British Board of Trade got to do with it? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I went in and I got it out of the UK History Library, believe it or not.
And where did you find this?
I found it online.
Really? Okay.
Yep. And I didn't think I would, but it's the Council of Trade and Plantations, 1696 to 1782. And it said the Council of Foreign Trade and Foreign Plantations of 1696 was appointed by the Crown by commission under the Great Seal. It was composed of various unsalaried ex officio commissioners who were not expected to attend the board regularly, and it would be the commissioners are the holders of office of Lord Chancellor or Lord Keeper, the Lord President of the Council, the Lord Privy Seal, the Lord Treasurer of First Lord of Treasury, the Lord Admiral and First Lord of Admiralty, Secretary of State, and Chancellor to the Exchequer, which is the Bank of England, to the Bishop of London in 1702, and the Surveyor and Auditor General of Plantations in 1791. Now, let's go back and look at who was appointed in 1696.
As what?
As the Board of Trade, which regulated British colonial holdings overseas. October 28th. Now, a lot of people know Story, Blackstone, Pufendorf, John Locke, and all these as champions of freedom, right?
Yeah, Locke. Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Who was appointed May 15th, 1696, amongst all the people was John Locke.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
In 1697, John Locke. In 1699, John Locke. Now, Locke was for democracy, not a republic. And in fact, it was on the British Board of Trade that dictated to the colonies that they were to use no paper, only gold and silver, so the Crown could better control the people in the colonies. And Locke was even appointed to the British Board of Trade to suggest this. Locke was appointed to the Board of Trade and instrumental in the Act of 1751 that forbid the colonies to use anything but gold and silver, and they could not install a banking system, and forbid the colonies to use paper money as they had done.
So in other words, John Locke, who was supposed to be this person that was so
champion of freedom and stuff, he was just the opposite.
But
in fact, what happened was Locke was for the Crown, not the people, despite what he wrote. And in fact, Ben Franklin, was charged to answer the British Board of Trade. And I'll read you a direct quote right out of Franklin's speech to the British Board of Trade, okay? And it says, this is on his decree that they could only use gold and silver.
Right.
Here's a quote. To the contrary, paper money that served as a medium of exchange and credit had made possible for the growth of the colonies and their trade that had profited England by providing greater facility and convenience in trade than does barter, and was the only alternate in the face of the shortage of British coins. End quote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, That shows the con job, which I call the Constitution. Everybody calls it the Constitution. I call it a con job. It was to sell out of the people as it was written by the Crown, and the framers were nothing but puppets. And the reason why is because the Crown said, okay, we're going to run a blockade against you in America because you have no navy, you have no army, we control the seas, and we'll run a blockade, and we will confiscate every piece of property in England and Europe that you own. And you will be destitute in your own little world over there, and we will finally rule you again.
So what you're saying, though, is that England said, okay, we don't have to fight anymore, we don't have to shed any blood, we don't have to pay mercenaries to come over and do our stuff.
That's right.
We're going to grab you by the financial short hairs, and either you wake up or, but really they didn't have to invade. It was all about finances.
That's all it was.
And what you're saying is also, and of course it is there in the record, we're going to talk about some of the sources of information that everybody can look toward.
Oh, yeah, they can go and pick this up in, not that particular thing that I had.
No.
But the very beginning of it is the quote, that is from, just go online and go to the UK, what the heck is it, the British Board of Trade. Just type in United Kingdom, the British Board of Trade. It'll come up. And I don't have the exact thing right here.
No, that's okay. We'll put that up on the site later on.
Yes, UK History Library is where it comes from. Council of Trade and Plantations, 1696 to 1782.
And we're going to break pretty soon for the top of the hour, and the first of the 2 hours we're going to do with you. But we're talking about it's all about money. It's always been all about money.
Always been about money.
So the founding fathers found themselves basically pressed against the wall, and they turned around and they gave us up.
Yep.
To save their own asses.
That's exactly what they did, because they looked down on us, the commoner, as the same as Warren Buffett and Gates and the president of CEO of GM and all the Chrysler people. We're on a different level. We're on a different plane than what they are, and they got a lot more, they say, to lose, and they're protecting their own butts, just like the bailout. Where's all the money coming from? It ain't coming from the Federal Reserve, and they don't have any. Well, they could print it and really cause an inflation and really a drop in everything quicker than what I've figured about 100 days from December the 1st.
All right, so what we're looking at, and we're coming up on the top of the hour. In the second hour, we're going to talk about the Constitution, and everybody gets all freaked out about it. I mean, you and I have gone back about this, and even the listeners, who are here with us today, and those who will listen later on, are like we all been.
Right.
We got the Constitution. The Constitution is where it's at, but really that's been a scam as well.
Yes. And
the founding fathers, and the one thing I find most reprehensible is the fact that they would allow themselves to be coined as fathers because they are anything but patriarchs.
Well, do you know, in the definition of international law, that the word founding fathers, means an illusionary corporation?
Oh, wait a minute. State that again. Founding fathers in what dictionary?
In international law, anything that is founding is a founding of an illusionary, I can't pronounce it right, illusionary organization, which is like...
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, right.
It's ephemeral. It isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's there, but it's not there. You can't grab it. It's not tangible.
Right. It's intangible. It's a fiction.
And the thing that they would call themselves fathers, and I have to tell you this, if anybody's ever read on that Avalon site, which I think you would say is pretty good as far as...
Oh, yeah, it is very good.
What Jefferson had written to the Native American people,
mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I am your father and you're my children. I hurled.
Well, the same way if you looked at the Bible, he says, the Lord, call no man your father.
Yep.
Call no man a father. In other words, the father of the priest in the Catholic Church, you don't call him father. Why would you call them a father? The Lord is the father. Your human father is an offshoot of the Lord, and that's
right.
why he commanded no one to call no man no father. That's what he said.
All right, we're going to go to a break. We're going to take about 4 minutes, folks. That's about it, like 4 minutes and 10 seconds. And we're going to rejoin this discussion with the I-Man with regard, and we're going to get heavily into the Constitution. So in the second hour, we're going to really get into the nuts and bolts of this. And again, we'll be about 4 minutes, so if everybody's going to take a potty break or whatever they're going to do it now. And Jim, if you can roll that music. I-Man, I'll see you in about 4 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, well, here we are after our break music, and that song always makes me cry, and we don't mind identifying that the time of this interview is at the Christmas season. We're recording this on December 20th, and we are here with the informer who's been with us for a while now, but we kind of wanted to do something that was a bit of a primer and try to condense it as much as we could into a 2-hour show, knowing that also you folks would have questions as well. Now, I-Man,
yep.
I think we might have. Well, let me do this. If we can pop this along, because we don't have to explain everything right here.
Right.
I mean, your works do that, and we're not trying to sucker anybody into buying anything. But let's face it, folks. I mean, you can't break it all down like the history of the world in 2 hours.
No,
no,
that's impossible.
But let's lay this out. The British Board of Trade. I ask you this. It was around. I mean, this thing has been around for forever. What was it? And are we looking at the Fed, our Fed, as being an extension of that British Board of Trade?
No, it's actually an extension of the Exchequer
Of the Bank of England.
of the Crown, which is the Bank of England.
Okay.
In other words, when they installed that over here, that was already installed as the Bank of England.
Okay. All right.
And it's pretty hard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bring. It's very hard to understand this because the Constitution is written in very highly technical language, and most people say, "Oh no, we created it, and the average person should be able to understand it." Well, it isn't, because I'm going to read you an excerpt from Whiting. He was Lincoln's War Power Solicitor General. Now, this is right out of Whiting's book. And
all right, what year would this be also, I mean?
1861.
Okay.
The book is published 1861, 2, 3, 4, and then a few years after that. Now, this is not my words. This is Whiting's own words. Technical language to be construed technically. The language of the Constitution is peculiar. It is technical. It shows on the face of it an intention to limit the technical operation of attainders, not to limit the scope or extent of legislative penalties. If the authors of the Constitution meant to say that Congress should pass no law punishing treason by attainder, or by its consequences, viz., forfeiture of estate, corruption of blood, they would in plain terms have said so. Everybody thinks that's what it means.
All right.
So there would have been an end to the attainder's penalties, as there was an end to bill of attainder. Instead of saying, quote, Congress shall have the powers to declare the punishment of treason, but shall not impose the penalties of attainder upon the offender, they said, and here's what they really said, Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason, no change, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. End of quote. This phraseology has reference only to technical effect of attainder. The, quote, a working of forfeitures, end quote, is a phrase used by lawyers to show the legal result or effect which arises from a certain set of facts. Note, since the publication of the 7th edition has been decided by Underwood J. in the Eastern District Court of the U.S. for Virginia in the case of U.S. versus Lantham, first, that the Confiscation Act above cited is authorized by the Constitution. Second, that by terms of that act, dated July 17, 1862, Chapter 195, as modified by the Joint Resolution of July 27, 1862, Number 63, the punishment of treason is not limited to forfeiture of the life estate of the offender, and is not required to be so limited by the Constitution, but the forfeiture extends to the entire estate of fee simple. End of Whiting's quote. Right there. End of fee simple. We pay a fee, a simple fee, when you buy property, because it's always in fee simple. Means you never own the property, will never own the property, ever.
All right, and I understand that, and we've stated
and
that.
That's why it says tenants in common to what?
What?
Now,
okay, now.
Here is where the common comes in.
Okay.
The state is the other common because they are a party to it, and they have insured their property, and that's why you have to get title insurance.
Okay, are you talking about the state as being the overlaying state?
Yes.
All right, so if you're in Florida, North Carolina...
The fiction state. In other words, this state or the state of North Carolina in all capitals. That's the corporate state, overlying the land mass that rises above the land mass and the water and whatnot.
All right, so what we're dealing with is an invisible but corporate...
Yeah, corporate entity.
Right, and I said before overlay, and
yeah.
And I think Randy in the chat room said that's beautiful because that's what the UN uses all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, so this irony should not be lost on us because the point is they're telling us, you idiots, you think you own it, but you don't.
That's right. Now, that's why no one can ever get a lodial title. Can never happen. Now, here's one thing. I'm going to read this direct quote because everybody knows about Obama and not being a citizen and all this, and everybody heard Euphoria, the guy in Jersey. Okay. Now, here's a constitutional requirement for the president. Now, you got to read this. Remember, Whiting said it's very technical, highly technical. The words that you, a citizen or a citizen of the United States, comma, at the time of the adoption of this Constitution. You got that?
All right.
When was the Constitution adopted?
1783, 7? 87, okay.
Comma, shall be eligible for the office of president, comma, neither shall any person be eligible to that office shall have not attained the age of 35 and been 14 years a resident within the United States. Stop. Now tell me, 1787, add 14 years, and when can that first president be elected?
How many years after the fact?
Since 1787. Add 14 years to 1787, and what year can the president be first installed under constitutional principle?
Well, you're looking at what? Just across the into 1800s.
1801.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay. Now, let's go. And here, for the requirements for Congress are 7 years a citizen, and the Senate 9 years a citizen. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, now, the historical fact is the United States never existed before 1787 when it was created. How could it? It was all Confederacy, wasn't it?
All right, so 1783, the Crown just said, okay, you guys are states, but that really didn't incorporate the United States until 1787.
No, they were colonies because if you go and pull the original 13's Constitution, which I did, they all say colonies. They didn't say states.
All right, so 1787, we've got a corporate United States.
Right, 1787.
Okay.
Now, so the historical fact is that technically it never existed until the year 1787 when it was adopted. The Constitution was adopted only by those few that drafted it. It was never put to the people to ratify it or adopt it because the Crown dictated the parameters for the Founding Fathers so they could still control their property, the Crown's property, that was never given up by the Revolutionary War. Now, here is the membership of the first Congress convened under the Constitution. And I pulled this out from the library. President of the Senate, John Adams. President Pro Tem, John Langdon. Speaker of the House, Frederick Muhlenberg. Members, 22 to 26 senators and 59 to 64 representatives. That's all there was. That's all the people in the Constitution. Wasn't me, wasn't you, wasn't our relatives way back yonder. The first meeting was March 4th, 1789 to September the 29th, 1797. They met 3 times. Now, I went back and I says, okay, because Obama, you can thank Obama for my getting into this. I had to go online and I found from the government's own history of presidents document found on the internet, and you can't find it, everything in one section. They do not tell you, they hide it. Here's what it said. George Washington was born in Westmoreland County, Virginia, February 22nd, 1732. He was the first U.S. president serving from 1789 to 1797. but was born a British subject.
Subject, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the same way for John Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, William Henry Harrison, and
Van Buren?
Van Buren, and all those people. So now I got that from the publishing company source that quoted everything, that I had to go in and find another one. And it gave all the presidents, but it gave little-known facts. And this is where it comes in, and it says, Martin Van Buren, born December 5th, 1782. Uh-oh, he was born 5 years before 1787.
Before the colonies became states.
Yeah.
Therefore, he's a British subject.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it says, now listen to this. He was the 8th president. He was also the only president not to have spoken English as a first language, having grown up speaking Dutch,
Yeah.
and was the first natural-born U.S. citizen to become president. They lied.
Right.
They totally lied. Because Locke at 17 enacted and created the United States. So how could he be called the citizen of the United States 5 years before it was created? It's an impossibility.
No, but, but the point is that this
people don't look at it this way.
No, but I mean, this whole thing about Obama now is which you're saying, it's like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, that's why he would come in, and that's why the courts would say it. Now listen to this. William Henry Harrison. Harrison was born in Benjamin Harrison, the signer of the Declaration of Independence. Harrison was, in fact, a scion of the Virginia planter aristocracy. He was born February 9, 1773, Charles County, Virginia, born of Benjamin Harrison and Elizabeth Bassett. Harrison was the last president who was born a British subject. Ah, right? No. Now, let's go on. I said, so now, let's go on and find out who was the real first president of the United States that actually could hold office according to the Constitution. It was John Tyler, born March 29, 1790, 3 years after the creation of the United States, in Charles City, County, Virginia.
Which means Virginia at that time was now a state.
Right. Okay. He was the 10th U.S. president, serving from 1841 to 1845. Now, he was born a few years after the Revolution in 1790, so he still meets the criteria. And he, believe it or not, was against Andrew Jackson, and he represented everything in politics that Tyler was against, especially the new voting power of the West when Jackson's government attempted to restrict slavery in new states west of Missouri. Now, Tyler was totally against it, and so much so that he refused to allow anybody who didn't have money to vote. Goes right back to the original where you had to have 50 pounds sterling or the equivalent in land before you could vote. Therefore, you could never be an elector. Therefore, the common man never created the Constitution. That's proof right there.
Right.
Jesus. As soon as they open that door, it's all over.